Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. We're excited about what we're about to present to you. This has been a long time coming and a lot of collaboration between a lot of people, specifically the three logos you see here on the board. So a big thanks to our friends and partners at Maxar who are joining us today as part of the presentation, the panel, and they'll be here to answer questions following today's presentation. Esri, of course, both Esri Canada and Esri Inc., we have friends and partners from that organization joining on the panel. Last but not least, to introduce myself, my name is Jordan Fox. I'm from SkyWatch. SkyWatch is a company based out of Kitchener-Waterloo, so for those not from the area, our head office is based about an hour and a half down the road heading west, but we have staff around the world, and we're really excited to be with you here today and hosting this great event. So to introduce a few of my peers, we first of all have John Roos joining us from Maxar, a legend of the industry, and excited to have him join us today. We have Chris Scheel from Esri, and we have Elvis Takao, also from Esri. Any other fellow Canadians, give them a freezing cold Canadian welcome. And then, as I mentioned, my name is Jordan Fox, and I head up the sales team partnerships for SkyWatch. So, brief overview of the agenda and what we're going to cover here today. We're first going to start with John's section, which is Satellite Imagery 101, and I think that title summarizes what he's going to cover perfectly. And then we'll get into a little bit more around workshopping with imagery in ArcGIS, and that'll be led by Chris and Elvis. No one better to lead that section. And then we'll finish with myself and a colleague of mine, Mark Fleck, who's the director of our platform product, and we'll dive into using Maxar data and imagery within our products hub and the integrations we've built with Esri. And we're really excited to share some of our product updates and some exciting product announcements that we actually just unveiled last week. We'll finish then with a panel discussion across all of the individuals involved, and then we'll end with a Q&A. And we will have a QR code we'll put up where you can scan that and put in your questions directly, and that way everyone has a chance to ask some questions. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can today. All right, well, without further ado, I will pass the mic over to John and give him a warm round of applause.
This is probably my 15th PDAC, 19 years at Maxar Digital Globe. So this is Imagery 101. I just want to go through what we do. So it's sort of a lightning talk, but there's some interesting things to say, some big changes in our relationships. Well, we have a longtime partner, Esri, and the new thing with SkyWatch is quite interesting as well. I mean, Maxar Intelligence provides secure, precise geospatial insights. That's based on, a high-resolution constellation and an AI-powered platform. When we look at our satellites, this was what we saw at February 4th. Last week, we had SkyWatch, Esri, and some of our other partners, the launch in Cape Canaveral on the Falcon 9 rocket of our last 2 of our 6 satellites that we put up. And again, if you look at this, when we started the launch in 1999 with Iconos, 2001 QuickBird, and then the launch of the very high resolution sub-meter 50 and 30 centimeter sensors. So if you look at the 6 WorldView Legions there and the WorldView 3, the big difference there is, the bus for the WorldView Legion is around 3 meters. WorldView 3 is around 5.7. So what we're doing is getting a lot of these components smaller and smaller. Navigation, GPS, the telescope. We worked really closely with Raytheon because you can make things smaller, but you can't always get the best results. So the idea was to get equal results as we're getting from WorldView 3. When you look at WorldView 3, $650 million to put up. WorldView 4 that we lost, that's not in here, $800 million. We put all 6 birds up. May, August, and the last 2 in February for $600 million. So it's changed a lot what we're doing. 6 million square kilometers per day, 30 centimeter class, so all 30 centimeters on the Legion, equivalent to WorldView 3. That was our only WorldView 3 satellite, 30 centimeter satellite, sorry. When you look at the changes, one of the profound changes is dawn to dusk tasking. And before that it was, 10:30 or 1. Now we have that morning to night constellation, and how we did that was changing changing the orbits from mid-inclined orbit from a sun-synchronous orbit. So these are small changes, but they're huge changes in what we're doing, and this adds to the high revisit. So this is just an example. I mean, normally we'd look at 1 or 2 times a day. Here we're getting 15 times over Paris, France, using our constellation. I mean, our 6 Legion satellites are in IOC, moving to FOC, so we're getting that 15 revisits per day, and that changes the market considerably, and it allows companies like SkyWatch to leverage that through our APIs. Again, you're seeing the different birds. When I first started, we'd get 1 every 3 days on a quick bird. Now we're getting 15 times a day depending. So this is tripling our 30-centimeter class, increased point daily targets, high revisit rates, I mentioned 15 times a day, the dawn to dusk, and the most important thing is the precision, you know what I mean? Especially in the mining. The mining's always been huge for us, you know what I mean? And getting that precision where you know where to do your operations. And again, this is just the 30-centimeter class. When we have all 6 birds online, 3.6 million square kilometers per day. So it's going to change. Everyone talked about sub-meter. They talked about 60 centimeter, 50 centimeter, and now 30 centimeters is the new norm. And with that, we can do a high definition on our 30-centimeter data to 15-centimeter data, an artificial synthesized image, and a lot of people have accepted that. So that's available on the SkyWatch platform. And again, a lot of people I probably need a psychologist to deal with this because nobody really knows Maxar Digital Globe, but 1 billion people are using it every day. Last night somebody was talking about, I saw a documentary on the MH370, the Malaysian airplane that went down. We were shooting that with a crowdsource or shooting it and looking at it through a crowdsource application. So whether you're looking at the news, CNN, the Ukraine, mapping applications, we're behind a lot of different things, and we pride ourselves on that. In the exploration side of things, we're looking at, you know what I mean, navigation, looking at new sites, looking what's there, doing alteration mapping, using our 3.7 SWIR bands on WorldView 3. Alberta Energy upstairs, they did 60,000 square kilometers on there on the north side. They published that with Benoit Revan from the University of Alberta, but there's a lot of different applications on the SWIR side of things. Feasibility studies, resource calculations. One of our partners too does 15-centimeter accuracy, looking at tailings ponds. You know what I mean? We've been monitoring them for decades now. So a lot of this satellite imagery, they could use drones, but they're still using satellite images because of the precision, and we can image anywhere in the world. Again, the geotechnical and the sort of the cradle and grave analysis, do you know what I mean? Reclamation, monitoring wetlands, and everyone comes to something. Woodland, caribou, different things every day. There's different applications in what we're doing. So again, some of the imagery, this is September 7th, I believe, in Brazil, an iron ore mine. You can see there the imagery and the inset of the trucks, the HD. So we can do this monitoring. We showed a ship coming into Singapore Harbor, coming in, unloading, and leaving the same day, an analysis of that. Same type of thing on a mine site. Again, a diamond mine. Some of the examples there, WorldView 3 imagery, where we can do HD on it. Again, another one in Chile, looking at the different images there. We do monitoring them over the decades. And again, you see that, the insight there, the trucks, the monitoring. We've also done like asset management, looking at what a mining company, how many trucks they do, using the images we acquire. And even commodities markets, what people do. We've had different companies, we want to look at assets they don't own, but they want to look at what's going on in Iran, China, Russia, and we've done that successfully, looking at different assets and what's being produced. Again, here's another example, interesting example. We're a coal mine in Germany. The mine's expanding, eating up the little, I guess in German, a Dorf, little villages, eating there. So you see how things change. A lot of the people say, archive, it's like fruit, it's not good anymore. But more and more, I mean, whether it's climate change in the Arctic, people are looking back in our robust archive for imagery. And again, another image here. This is Red Dog. I know it's sometimes a difficult place to task with the clouds. But again, you can see the changes over a 3-year period, I believe. You can just see what's going on. So from the cradle to grave in that mining industry, we have a lot of different applications, and they're proven. Again, one of the aspects I talked about was on the Worldview 3, the SWIR bands. So the new Legion satellites are all 8 bands, and we're going to launch another 7 and 8. Those are planned. But the Worldview 3 has the shortwave infrared bands. You can see the volcano, the hotspots. We did a lot of work with the Fort McMurray fires, and we have an open data policy so when you see something around the world, 9 times out of 10, if it's large enough, whether it's the LA fires, we have free data. But you can see there that the ability to penetrate smoke, see the hotspots. One of the benefits there is when we look at alteration mapping, and we've done that, and I mentioned the Alberta AER upstairs, Alberta Energy Regulator, but our partners too have been doing this for, since it was launched in 2014. Again, the other aspect I'm going to talk about, which is interesting too, is our 3D. So all of our satellites can do in-track stereo. One thing, the GSD, we've done a lot, with the Raytheon, for good focal length to get really precise data with a good GSD. When you look at here, one of the things that we did with a company for Icon Saab, we purchased them, 3D is multi-view. So you can use the stacks of images, 15 or more images, to get a DSM, DTM, and build a city or mine site. And that's quite interesting there. So, there's a lot of push for the 2D, as we go and everyone to see stuff. Now it's that 3D interest. So we can generate anything at mine site, and we do that all the time. Also build the world in 3D. So absolute accuracy of 3 meters, relative accuracy of 1 meter, 50 centimeter. But when we look at that, this is what we're building out. And this is the project we're doing. This is the construct that we have. And it's sort of like Lego blocks. Everything fits together. So when we acquire new imagery, it's accurate, and you can get the imagery quickly. And that's our sort of 3D aspect that I mentioned. Here's just an example in Kalgoorlie in Australia, the super pit there. This is what we have on the P3D. The imagery there, you can see there was a collapse on the side of the mine there that'll go in there. So all this can be ordered online with SkyWatch. So I'll end there and sort of go. Last year, when we were talking to Mark here, he was looking at our APIs. In 2017, we had a snowmobile. When they call a snowmobile, it isn't a Canadian snowmobile. Amazon sort of parked up to our offices in Westminster. They took all our data, they put it on online, 135 petabytes of data. What we've been doing is with Esri's always been a strong partner of ourselves. With SkyWatch, they looked at our APIs and the ability to access that. So that's where we're going now, sort of like this year and the last year has been phenomenal for us. We waited for Legion for 3 years. We built a robust platform, MGP Pro, and now people are leveraging our APIs. And last week in Washington, we announced SkyWatch announced the relationship with Esri. We're just ecstatic about it. So that was Satellite Imagery 101 condensed lightning talk, and thank you very much.
Thanks, John. That's a great condensed lightning talk, so we really appreciate it. So if you take that piece of the puzzle and you move into the next logical piece, that takes us to our friends from Esri. And I'll introduce Chris Scheel and Elvis Takau here, who are going to bring us through how you can access some of this imagery and work with it within ArcGIS, which is sort of the next important piece of this puzzle here.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jordan. Elvis will sit over here. I like to have him around because I need to phone a friend. So as Jordan mentioned, my name is Chris Scheel. I'm a senior account executive on our imagery and remote sensing team, which I think is actually a great thing because Esri has so much technology and so many capabilities that I get to kind of put my blinders on and just focus on the imagery tech, which is very beneficial for me. I support our natural resources sectors, which mining obviously being one of those, but what it does is introduce me to so many various unique use cases and different uses of imagery. I've been in the remote sensing industry for 15 years, and most of that time was actually spent selling data content, which I think is really cool in seeing what the SkyWatch organization is doing, because that ability to curate and bring all of this data together to make that procurement process much easier for end users is phenomenal. Super, super helpful. I'd like to start here. This is what Jack, our president, refers to as a geographic approach. It's really the ability to take source content data, produce mapping products from it, analyze, get to a decision-making process, and then take action. And all of that has a spatial component to it. So again, important in the fact that we're trying to get to that source data, which is step one really in this process. I think it's important to kind of start here. A lot of times, and especially just in my own experience in working in this industry, you're working with organizations such as yourselves that are out trying to solve a problem. You're trying to identify imagery, and in some cases it might actually be imagery that you guys have already acquired. But that discovery and acquisition and search and discovery aspect of it is highly important. Where is my data, right? So it's kind of step one. Esri technology helps in that, leveraging something like a catalog data set or just the ability to sort through metadata so that you can organize and identify where your data sits. From there, you get into tools. So we've started with content. I now want to get into reality mapping. This could be producing ortho imagery, surface models, 3D creation, various tools to get you towards the ability to get into some analytics workflows. But that ability for reality mapping provides the capabilities to support really data from across the board. So it could be satellite spaceborne imagery to fixed wing aerial aircraft imagery or drone data. There we go. This is one of the topics I really kind of want to spend some time on is imagery management. I talked to, as I mentioned, a variety of customers across 6 different sectors, and in those discussions, you tend to always come around to imagery management. Where does my data actually live? How do I source it? How do I access it? Huge, huge, huge component of just working with imagery. It's heavy data sets. Sometimes that can be really challenging. But then I want to derive analytics, and Esri tech really helps in doing that, whether you're working at the desktop level in ArcGIS Pro, working in Enterprise, working in ArcGIS Online, the tools there to be able to do some of the analytic workflows that John was talking about, your change detection, feature extraction, pixel-based classification, those workflows are highly important. And so the flexibility of the Esri system can help you in doing that regardless of the deployment model that you're working at. Now as an organization, I've gone through and I've sourced my content data, I manage it, I've done some analysis and derived some insights, but now I need to be able to share it across my organization. And that's where, web-based mapping tools, dashboards, and the ability to leverage image data to support those workflows to visualize into your organization is highly important. If you're sourcing the data and you're working with it in the field, you're doing some analysis, but it just lives within kind of that bubble that you're in, those insights aren't being shared out to the rest of your organization. So the tools to be able to do this, visualize it across your enterprise can be very beneficial. So as I bring this all together, again, starting at content there, you get to your reality mapping products and being able to derive the mapping products there. And then you get to kind of that centralized hub around imagery management and just how important that is to host, manage, and scale that out across your organization. We touched on analytics, which again, highly important. You're obviously sourcing imagery for a specific reason. You need to be able to get to those insights and then visualize that across the organization. I spoke about the kind of the flexibility across the system regardless of the deployment model that you're in. But what about the individual users? You could have a field worker, somebody that needs to be able to access source imagery in the field just for an individual project, or you get into more of a team project environment, projects across an organization, or just that total enterprise level organization that needs to be able to leverage all these insights. The data can be worked with across the board, regardless of that user persona that you fit into. From an imagery and remote sensing perspective, again, I touched on we have various tools to help you with analyzing and producing map data, but this is just meant to show that really our reality engine and the ability to work with drone up to spaceborne data can be done across the board. So that reality engine is really powering all of that to derive the 2D and 3D data products and then serve that out across your enterprise or online environments across the bottom. Various trends and use cases when it comes to working with imagery, and I think we all probably see these at various levels, but just the ability to monitor operations, do some 3D analysis, or look at elevation profiles, across a mine site, maybe you want to do some volumetric calculations, but just accessing data in the field or looking at asset inspection type workflows from a site inspection standpoint in either 2D or 3D. There we go. So overall, I think Imagery just does a great job of helping to answer questions more than your traditional GIS vector-based data. Probably a biased opinion, but again, I've been in the remote sensing industry for about 15 years, so I just feel like there's so much rich insights that you get from image data that you don't necessarily always get from more traditional GIS layers. One of the data models, and this is kind of the last slide, and then I can pass it off back to Jordan. But I think it's important to think when you're managing data. Again, coming back to the importance of data management. We have this data model called a mosaic data set, which helps you in managing image services. And it's important to think of because I think when we all come across imagery, at least initially, you look at natural color imagery from a base mapping perspective, but there's so much more rich information in there. John was talking about 8-band imagery coming from Worldview 3, the new spectral bands coming in with Legion. That ability to tie into all of the spectral information within that imagery, but leverage it as a reference. So you're streaming it into your work environment, set up for analysis, the ability to apply different renderings and view imagery without necessarily having to be an image analyst, I think is highly important. So again, you can manage your data on the enterprise, manage it in the cloud, but referencing it in that mosaic data set and having the ability to serve that out across into web apps and into the hands of your users is highly important. So with that, I want to pass back to Jordan. Again, I think just kudos to the entire SkyWatch team, partnership with all the vendors that you guys are working with. Maxar, hugely appreciate your input, but what SkyWatch is bringing together with their content store and that ability to access data is a huge game changer in the industry.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris. That was great. So we're going to do the final piece of this puzzle. So you have one foundational piece, which is the content, the data you need coming from Maxar, and then you have Esri providing the platform where you're ingesting data across a variety of sources and building the solutions that you need. And then there's this unspoken intermediary layer saying, how do you get that data, that content then into Esri? And that's part of the story that SkyWatch plays in. There likely are a lot of people in the room who have never heard about SkyWatch or Hub or Content Store. So you know who I am. Mark, a colleague of mine who's sitting here and is going to join for a demo, is our director of platform product. SkyWatch has been in business since 2015. We have over 7,500 unique customers around the world, and that spans from individual users to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between. So we serve a broad market. We have industry-leading integrations with Esri, so both the ArcGIS Pro and then ArcGIS Online and Enterprise products. We'll showcase some of that today. And we serve some of the world's largest mining organizations holistically for their geospatial content needs. And that list grows more and more every year. I think 3 years ago when we came to this conference, we were just walking the floor. And since then, we've grown to being in this room with you all because it's becoming more of a reunion with a lot of our partners returning here at PDAC. So I'll put up a visual that I think best describes what the SkyWatch platform is with the least amount of words. So SkyWatch is a platform that aims to be the single point of access for anybody or any organization that wants to use premium content, so commercial data, imagery that you're going to pay for. And Hub is an application that SkyWatch has built in-house, and that's for the centralization of that data acquisition and distribution inside of an organization. But there's other ways for you as an individual to just get access to data. So whether you're somebody with a credit card who just wants to buy some commercial data, or you're an organization procuring a lot of it, we have applications and entry points to serve all of the above. So Hub is the application that serves the organization. Content Store, which we'll talk about, is that entry point through ArcGIS Online. And then we also have an integration with ArcGIS Pro, knowing that there's a strong user base there as well. You see a bunch of logos on the right. Maxar is obviously a pillar of that logo suite. And we want to give access to all of the data, and that portfolio is ever growing. So we don't just give access to what you see here. We constantly are adding data to that portfolio. In terms of what data types are available in there, that ranges from optical imagery across a variety of resolutions to stereo, tri-stereo, off-the-shelf elevation products at a variety of resolutions, SAR imagery, hyperspectral. You get the idea that we really want to be that one-stop shop, so you don't have to shop around. You have one place to go, and we want to meet you and your staff where you work. And this is what led us to build our tight integrations with Esri, because overwhelmingly, the majority of our users say, I work in ArcGIS Online, or I work in ArcGIS Enterprise, or ArcGIS Pro. And so that's why we are building those meeting points. So who is SkyWatch for? I've mentioned this, but it is for the individual user, and anybody can download Content Store today from the marketplace or our website. You can download the ArcGIS Pro add-in, or you can create an Explore user account if you're not an Esri user, and all those are for anybody. You can put a credit card in, and you can start buying commercial imagery or tasking a satellite today. And that is breaking down a lot of the barriers that have historically existed between somebody who wants access to commercial data and getting it. And so I think it's important to sit on this point for a minute, because historically, if somebody said, I want to get imagery, commercial imagery, they'd have to go out, shop around across vendors, sign a contract with minimum requirements. That takes time. It has licensing restrictions. It has pricing restrictions because you have to commit. But with SkyWatch, you don't have to do that. As an individual user, again, you can put in a credit card, create an account, and you're buying data. And then for the organization, you can go and create a hub account, and that just allows you to have multiple users in one place, create approval workflows, permission-based systems that integrate with all your other Esri instances so that your users are all contained in one application. And then procurement. So how can you buy this data? Again, as an individual, you put in your credit card. As an organization, you can commit to, and most of our hub organizations do, an annual amount of data that can be spent across any of the integrated sources. And as of last week, if you're an Esri organization, you can purchase Content Store data credits, which can be spent across any source, through your Esri account manager. So if you have an enterprise agreement, you could add it as an amendment, or you could buy it as a sales order through Esri with Content Store data credits. The reason I think that's worth calling out is because as we try to simplify this industry in every barrier that exists, procurement is one of those barriers. And so by saying, your procurement team can now buy access to this portfolio of data through Esri, means you don't have to create a new vendor integration. You can do it with Esri. So without further ado, I will actually bring up my colleague Mark, and we'll look at Content Store. And again, for context, Content Store is something we just formally launched last week at the Esri Fed GIS conference, so it's relatively hot off the press. And this has been a long time coming. We actually built this really closely with the Esri Living Atlas team. And so we wanted it to look really native to an Esri user and feel like an Esri product. Because again, the goal of SkyWatch is to meet our users where they live and breathe today. And so if you live and breathe in ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, we want it to feel like an Esri product that sort of showcases all that SkyWatch platform functionality. So I'll shut up, and without further ado, give the mic to Mark.
All right, so we are going to attempt a live demo on hotspot Wi-Fi. I'm going to start within the ArcGIS marketplace. So you can see my URL on the top there. Anyone can access that. And that's where our discovery experience actually starts. So I'm going to plug in Content Store within my marketplace products, click Go, and then I'll be able to find the Content Store within the marketplace. So go ahead and click on that, and that's a specific app that I'm able to provision within my organization. So if I click Get It Now, I'll go through a workflow to be able to get access to it, and it will end up within my ArcGIS Online environment. So I'm going to pop over to my ArcGIS Online environment now. You go to my groups, and I'm able to see Content Store for ArcGIS. The way this works is if you're within your ArcGIS Online environment, you're able to, as a Esri admin, provision specific users to access this. So if I go into groups, I'll be able to see that there's specific groups who are allowed, specific users within a group who are allowed to use Content Store. So for example, Joel, Mark, and Katrina are able to access Content Store. Jordan can't. So I don't trust Jordan to purchase data off of our data credits. Jordan can't access. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see Content Store for ArcGIS at the app launcher. If I click on that, sign in with ArcGIS Online, and then click Allow, it'll use my ArcGIS Online credentials to log in. Once we're logged in, it looks something like this. So that's the first step of the process. There's a lot more kind of complexity in the background that we're happy to walk people through to get it set up if you're a hub user, if you're a pay-as-you-go user, but that's it at a really high level. I'm going to walk through a couple use cases here, starting with searching for new data. So I'm going to click Add Layer, and then go to ArcGIS Online. So when I click on that, what you can see is there's access to all of the different layers within my organization, my users, or also just public ArcGIS Online or Living Atlas. So if I search for something like fire, and I scroll down, I can add USA current wildfires to this map. So you'll be able to use that as a ArcGIS Online layer, and that then appears within the mapping application. I can use that as a background to order data, or I can also look for layers within my organization. So for example, I can see all of the different layers that different users have made. And for this use case, I set up a PDAC mining example we're going to use. So I'm going to click Add, and this is going to bring us to the AOI that we're going to use to search for Maxar data in this example. So this is a AOI, I think it's in Australia. What you're able to see is on the top right-hand corner, I actually still have USA current wildfires and PDAC available. These are just different layers I'm able to toggle on and off. So this entire application is based off of Esri APIs, and the functionality you get within ArcGIS Online, you get within here as well. So we're going to use this AOI to search, and I'm going to go the last 12 months and click Search All Results. I can filter by different results. So say I just want to look at date, I can look for February 28th Maxar 30 centimeter data set, which was collected by Legion. So this is data that was collected, 2 days ago. It's readily available within the archive. You can see the price, you can see the estimated cloud coverage, et cetera, and you can go order that data if you'd like. I'm going to scroll out a little bit, and what you can see is you can see the bounding box of overlap for each of these products. So for example, each Maxar product has a specific unique bounding box, and if I click on that, I can see a low resolution preview of the product. I'm going to order this product, so I'm going to click Add, go to Cart, and click Checkout. I'll give an order name of Maxar Test. And then one of the interesting pieces of functionality we have is an ability to map credits. So Jordan mentioned the ability to track credits, content store credits, as part of your EA within Esri. That's how this would appear. So I can understand that as part of this project, I have 160 credits that I'm going to purchase out of 500 credits remaining. There might be a situation, though, where I actually don't have up-to-date data over this area of interest, and I might want to go task, say, a Legion satellite to go look for new data. So I'm going to click out and go over to tasking. I'm going to do my same workflow to go within my organization and get a layer. And I'll add that back. I'll select that. And then we'll go through a tasking workflow. So I'll click Next. I want some Maxar 30 centimeter data. I can choose different band combinations. So if I want RGB plus near, I can select that, or I can actually select an 8-band configuration as well with all of the different bands being available. For this use case, we'll just keep it as 4 bands, and it's the same workflow. So we can go ahead, task that satellite. That data will then be captured. There's an estimated capture date, and that data will be delivered back into your content store account. One thing I wanted to highlight before I go into the order section, which is the last part of this demo, John was talking a little bit about APIs, MGP Pro, how good the APIs are for Maxar. We had a prep session for this on Thursday when I ordered the sample data set. I ordered it at UTC time 8:48, and it was delivered UTC time 9:22. So it's 34 minutes from when I click purchase to when the data is actually available in my account to manipulate. The APIs have gotten so advanced that we're entirely machine to machine. There's not a human connecting any dots here. And if you need that data ASAP, it gets delivered within half an hour. I ordered the data set before the meeting started. It was there by the end of the meeting. All right. So we've gone through search, we've gone through tasking, and I'm going to click on orders now. And I'm going to scroll in So for the last part of this, we're going to go through a use case to show once that data is delivered, what can I actually do with that data set. So this was the data that was ordered. I can go ahead and click on order details, and that's going to go pull a bunch of information about the data set. So for example, I know this is off of Worldview Legion 1. It cost me 160 data credits. It was about 6.46 kilometers squared. I can also actually view this on the map. So SkyWatch delivers a cloud-optimized GeoTIFF for every single data product that we process, and that's actually the full resolution. So I'm not going to try to actually load this because, again, Wi-Fi and hotspot, but as you can see, it actually slowly loads. This is the full resolution of the product because we deliver a cloud-optimized GeoTIFF for all products. If you wanted to use it within Pro, you could download this data set as well. And the last thing I'll showcase that we spent a lot of time working on with Esri is actually a publishing workflow. And what publishing means is this data can get published as a tile cache or a tiled imagery layer, and you can find that data back within your organization. So I'm going to use tile cache as an example. The main difference between these two is tile cache is an 8-bit RGB flat file versus a tiled imagery layer is actually a 16-bit with all the bands included. So if we're in an environment like this, where we don't have great internet connection, you don't actually want all 8 bands, 16-bit with all the pixel complexity. You probably just want to look at it and see if it looks pretty. That's the use case for a tile cache. So go through a Maxar test, and I'll submit that. And then within about half an hour, that data will appear within my organization. So I'm back within ArcGIS Online now. I did this beforehand, so I'm cheating a little bit. I apologize. I have the PDAC mining example tile cache up, and you're able to use that, and that's performant because all the pixels are loaded in ahead of time, so I'm not waiting to load. If we did this for a tiled imagery layer or something else, it would be a lot more difficult to be performant. So I hope this shows the initial authentication, the ordering, and then the subsequent publishing within ArcGIS Online. This is the tile cache, which is the visual, very performant one. And then I just had an example of this pop up too. This is actually a Maxar 8-band that we published last week as well as a tiled imagery layer. And if you click anywhere on the screen, you can see the pixel values of all 8 bands available. So as I was mentioning previously, if you wanted to go bring this into some post-processing, this is now a product that exists within your organization, and you can do any pixel analysis that you may want. I think that's about it demo-wise. I'll hand the mic back over to Jordan.
So hopefully the story is becoming clear. I think one thing to double down on in this story are some of the problems that this set of solutions solves. So by centralizing your access point inside your organization, or for yourself as a user inside of an organization, we're doing a couple things. One is we're starting to break down the organizational silos that exist. So what we would see working with some mining organizations in the past is that geographies, departments, users are buying data themselves individually and not communicating. And so people inside the same organization are buying the same data twice. They're paying different rates for data. They're buying data sets they may not need when there may be a more efficient data set out there. And so by centralizing it, you break down all of that. By knowing what data exists in your organization, having simple access to it, we're not buying the same data twice. We're having a more efficient approach to it. The other thing that we're doing is making sure that all users know what data exists to buy. So rather than having a default, oh, I just get this kind of imagery, and that might be from a different modality, it might be from a drone or from aerial, that might not always be the best choice. We know that there is not a one-size-fits-all, but we think by making everybody aware as to what data exists, people can start to make the right selection for the best data set for their project. So centralizing that helps us do that. So with that, we're actually going to move into a panel discussion. I will ask Mark, Chris, John, if you don't mind coming into the press conference seats here. We're going to ask a couple questions, and then we're also going to pull up the questions from the audience and start to answer some of those. We'll let you gentlemen get seated here. The first one for the group is a classic question. So how do you see remote sensing and the geospatial technology evolving in the mining industry over the next 5 years? So I don't know who wants to take that mic first.
I can jump in. I think, and sorry, real quick, is the question related to satellite imagery specifically?
It just says remote sensing data and geospatial technology as a whole.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask. So I think you saw definitely through John's presentation, just, the ability to access additional spectral bands. I think there's more and more use cases and more demand that comes up for multispectral imagery. The sensors, John also touched on this. With Legion, they're building satellites at a lower cost per satellite, but still getting the accuracy, the spatial resolution and everything. So they're not sacrificing on that. But I think in the industry, I think where we're seeing a lot of demand is not just from the orthomosaic or 2D data product perspective, but a big push for 3D. I think that the digital twin, the push for reality mapping, the ability, with precision 3D, like John was showing, that ability to view your working environment in a 3D perspective is providing more and more valuable information. But then you couple that with the rest of your GIS and your other data layers, it just provides a really, really powerful environment to do your work in. Here.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think for us, I mentioned there's a technology change. We're getting smaller, better, putting up more birds. But then again, even the market, it's changing workflows, how people see the data. COVID changed a lot too. When you looked at people working remotely, they try to do new things with it. But beyond that, Maxar is one component, and it's interesting how the field is changing. There's a lot more sensors up there. We do, I didn't mention, we do methane detection. We've done it successfully with Worldview 3, but there's other birds that are going up and doing a similar thing. Accuracies and improve in what we can acquire. So what we can image from space on other sensors as well is interesting. Some of the new birds that are going up, not just like I mentioned from Maxar, but other ones where, new SWIR data, new SWIR bands. So I think there's going to be a change in how we, like I said, access the data, but new platforms to provide insights to what we're doing and what the mining industry needs.
I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that, Mark? Okay. The next question on here was, how does satellite imagery specifically improve exploration or other operations in mining, and what advantages does it have over traditional methods of data gathering?
I guess I'll just jump into that before you do, Chris, so I'm right here. That's what we're doing. I think a lot of teams, even when I mentioned our alteration mapping, even you look at it, it's still not used to the extent that it could do, that the whole technology. I think the adoption's there. But the whole, I mentioned the cradle to grave, there's different aspects, and if that can be used throughout the organization, somebody will come to us, we need a Worldview 3 imagery, and we need for this aspect, but again, you can use it on a whole number of different layers, like the whole alteration change detection. It becomes a foundation for the organization. So I think it's quite optimistic how we're seeing imagery is being used, and there's still a lot of organizations siloed, and that's where I think SkyWatch will add a lot to that, so it's used throughout the organization and it's easier to acquire.
Yeah, and just to add, I think this question speaks really to the power of remote sensing in general, right? It's the ability to capture large areas quickly at high resolution without putting boots on the ground. I don't think that imagery is always a replacement for other field activities, but it provides the opportunity for those people that have that field level expertise to then maybe get into the analyst chair, or the ability to provide some of their insights into analyzing the imagery without having to physically go out on site. So there's obviously a health and safety benefit perspective to that too.
And I'll throw in 2 cents and I'll let you go, Mark. You might say the same thing I'm about to say, but I think Mark and I work really closely together with a lot of our largest mining customers, and I think some of the things are obvious. So people often are evaluating either out loud or quietly, is it drone or is it satellite imagery that I should use? And our answer is always, it's not either or, it's always and, because they're different data sets. And I think by breaking down the barriers to access, we find that customers are leaning into satellite more often than they would in the past. And that can be because the sites they're looking at are remote, and it's actually hard to get people to those sites. It can be that actually spinning up a drone capture takes more time, and tasking the satellite's quite more efficient from a cost or a timing perspective. And also, the other obvious thing is that when we see mining organizations look at a 15-centimeter optical satellite image for the first time, it's usually a bit of a holy shit moment, because a lot of people haven't seen the kind of resolution you can get from a satellite, and when they do, suddenly it's unlocking a whole bunch of use cases where satellite historically didn't play a role. And then the last thing I'll say is, again, when we break down the barriers for users to get access to this imagery, we start to really see it unlock new use cases. So we had a large mining org who had a legal team reach out about some kind of incident, and they got their hands on a 15-centimeter image, and suddenly now they're consumers of imagery on an ongoing basis because they realized, well, I can glean data from this. Historically, I don't have a GIS background or a remote sensing background. This is the legal team, so it doesn't feel like my arena, but by making it easy to get it, suddenly it is their arena. It is a tool in their toolbox they can use in their operations, and this is a legal team inside of a mining organization. So it starts to unlock some new use cases. This comes up in every industry and vertical that we serve. It's a good question. I think SkyWatch's stance on it right now is that we don't aim to serve those analytics, because there are enough problems to solve in the food chain here between somebody going to get the data, like a Maxar or a provider, and those who need it. And we've built a business around solving all those problems to say, somebody's getting data, somebody needs data. In terms of what somebody does with that data, we actually don't plan to strategically play in that arena, because there are enough good players like Esri who've built a product suite to go derive the insights out of that data, or consultants or in-house staff members that organizations have.
Yeah, and then maybe just from a technical perspective, when we think of our product roadmap, what we want to go build out, we want as many different modalities as possible to get that data into the Esri ecosystem. So you have a tile cache, you have a very performant flat file, you have files with all the pixel values, you have different levels of processing, but we're not looking to do a bunch of AI on top of that. That market is very well saturated, and there's extremely good tools within different environments. So we try to act as that plumbing, and then how you want to go take that is your discretion. I'll let Esri speak to the actual tooling, though.
So I think Esri takes, we're a software company, right? But I think we take a unique perspective in how we do some of this. We have, a super robust software platform that provides the ability to do millions of things, right? But we also serve really every sector you can think of, from national governments to defense and intelligence to mining to agriculture. So we have a suite of products that's meant to address needs across various sectors. But the way that our technology is built, it also provides the ability to customize and configure the tools to meet specific use cases and analytics needs. For customers that want the ability to really get in and configure and do the button turning themselves, the platform can provide a lot of that capability, customization, all that. For those that don't, but they want Esri to maybe get involved, we do have a services team that can get involved and do professional services engagements to help fulfill that need. But I feel like Esri also tries to reach out to our partner network, bring in partners or consultants or service providers that might be partners of ours, to then take our technology and enable their customers to fit that need. So it's a little bit of kind of all of the above, but I think there's a lot of flexibility to the platform that can provide.
Interesting question, Vern. I think in the past, in the early days, and when I say the early days, it seems like a long time ago, we had one bird up there and you waited every 3 or 4 days. A lot of over-promising, under-delivering. We're at the point now where we have a lot of different data samples. There's new satellites, there's a lot of new SAR up there, and we're looking forward to that. So I think what we've done in the past is more deprecating products, and we have, like you said, consultants, people that know our stuff better than us. I see faces in here. Some of our partners that are Maxar, part of the Maxar team, and Impact Geo, Photosat and stuff, they do stuff leveraging SkyWatch to give data where they can do a lot more. It's that boutique, the scientific core, which they're doing a lot. And I think that's more of the direction we're going now. We can do a lot of stuff, but there's people do it even better. and try not to compete with that. So, and I think that speaks a lot to the market now. It's maturing, if you will, you know what I mean, where we're getting a better product to the end clients and they understand it, you know what I mean, with different sensors.
Yeah, good question. And I put the Q&A QR code up here. I know we have a couple minutes left, but there are a handful of good questions that have come in as well. So the first one I think I can answer really quickly. The question was, what's the dollar value of a content store data credit when purchasing imagery through Esri? And the answer is 1 to 1. So we price in US dollars on the platform, and a content store data credit is dollar for dollar. So that's an easy one. The second question, and for anyone on the panel, is, are there any use cases or case studies that we know of using remote sensing data for mapping alteration that have led to a significant mineral discovery?
I don't know that I have an answer to that one. There's lots of them.
Yeah, I mean, and I think too, there is a lot of them, and even the applications that we're doing. One of the cool things that we're doing, like over the last few years with the Canadian government, we were monitoring beluga whales, narwhals, there's right whales, sea whales, and that's just something. I mean, things that you never thought we could do, and when you first have somebody come to you and go, I don't think we can do it, and we can do it. And I think that speaks to the variety of the data, the spectral richness and stuff, but there's a lot of different applications we're doing. We'll have Jane Goodall come to our office, and you're like, oh, what's she doing here? Oh, she does this. So, I mean, sometimes I think as a community, we've undervalued ourselves. Like I said, I can't keep count on how many mining companies we're working with, and I mentioned AER and stuff upstairs as a sizable one, but we're doing a lot of alteration mapping. And I mean, criticizing our company somewhat is, I'd like to hopefully we'll have that rich spectral diversity in the future, which we haven't done in the Legion, but that's my opinion. But I think we've come a long way, and we see that.
Yeah, good answer. And I'll throw in another anecdote from our neck of the woods. I think when somebody says, has this kind of data led to mineral discovery, I think that can take different shapes. So we had an exploration group in South Africa, I believe, who used data to capture new, what the road network looked like. So there was historic roads that were overgrown, and so they used a refresh set of very high resolution data from Maxar to say, what does the road network look like? And that ultimately did lead to a new site being set up. And so not, I think maybe the way the question was framed, but is satellite imagery being used for exploration in a variety of contexts? I think yes. Like we see those.
Yeah,
all
I the
think
it's a piece of the puzzle. And when people are spending billions of dollars in exploration, they want to have a better answer, and that's part of the solution.
Yeah. A couple last questions here. Will SkyWatch ever explore having actual products, or derivative products, in content store at some point?
I'll maybe just talk for this year. We're focused on existing data products, making those accessible as possible. I think in the future we would explore all types of products to be able to be accessed via content store. Our vision with Esri is to make this as ubiquitous as possible. So if you need premium content within Esri, content store is your first stop.
Have you ever thought to use AI in Hub or content store to find data?
Yeah, whoever asked this, I would love to buy you a beer, because I think we think about this a lot. I won't go super deep on the AI piece of this. We see it, again, from like an AI post-processing perspective, there's a really large market saturation there. Where we see it, that is like super high value is in the actual AOI creation and input of search. Believe it or not, one of the biggest difficulties is getting an AOI that is valid into the system to search for it. I won't get into the details, but we go and have a lot of different providers like Maxar, and although APIs are wonderful, there's a lot of differences between size of polygon, number of vertices, or holes allowed, all of that. And to be able to take a LLM style prompt into a automatically generated AOI that is exactly what you want, to then be used to say, maybe I want this specific area of interest, but also maybe I want a polygon of every single stadium in the world because I'm doing model detection based off of stadiums. That's where we actually see a ton of future potential. So less so on the post-processing, more on the original creation of the search, and then ultimately what data you get back.
Well, we'll wrap there because we're 4 minutes over. We want to thank everyone again for coming and being a part of this. We are, obviously, we've got refreshments at the back, so please stick around and help yourself. Also, this is the solutioning hour, so if you want to create an account, get more in-depth questions answered, feel free to stick around, and we're happy to discuss. But thank you again, and hope to see you all soon.